A third shooter attempted on Donald Trump's life this weekend. First, it was Butler, Pennsylvania, next Florida, and now the White House Correspondents Dinner. This raises questions not only as to the shooter himself, his background, his motives, but the larger phenomenon. Where will the dangerous cocktail of the abundance of guns and the legitimization of political violence lead America? Do words lead to action? Stay tuned. Hello, this is Or Yissachar, and you're watching Briefly by _. Before we continue, please consider hitting the subscribe button down below. This really helps us create much more amazing content for you guys. Well, that happened for the third time. A shooter attempted to take Donald Trump's life this weekend, and that happened during the White House Correspondents Dinner. According to a Fox News report, the White House Correspondents Dinner quickly devolved into chaos Saturday as shots rang out inside Washington, D.C. hotel, hosting the annual gala while President Donald Trump was in attendance. I have to say, not only President Trump, but Vice President Vance and the entire cabinet, as well as many other dignitaries. The suspect has been identified as Cole Allen, 31, of Taurus, California, with law enforcement adding that he prepared a manifesto and shared posts to social media outlining his intent to target Trump and other administration officials, according to authorities. Now, they mentioned something else which was interesting, that the shooter was shaped by years of ideological influence, arguing the attack reflects a broader pattern of radicalization rather than an isolated act, meaning he wasn't a lone wolf. This followed a trend, years of radicalization and, as Ben Shapiro says, the permission structure for violence that are taking place in today's America. So it seems he was the shooter, yes, but also the victim of years of being inside that echo chamber of radicalization, those so-called permission structures for political violence inside college campuses and on social media. Let me explain. So those incidents, in my opinion, are never isolated. They always grow on a fertile soil. Remember Charlie Kirk, of blessed memory? He was shot on September 10th, 2025 by this shooter, Tyler Robinson. He was, despite what Candace Owens and others are claiming, he was motivated by his animosity to Charlie Kirk based on the so-called anti-trans opinions that Charlie was promoting. On the bullets himself, it was engraved, "Hey, fascist catch," sort of those Bella Ciao, all those, sick narratives that are propagated online in those very dark rabbit holes, corners of the internet. But then he wasn't, yes, he was acting alone, but he was the creation of that culture, of that ecosystem. And so that's the question: do words lead to violence? Let's first look at the numbers. So according to an PRRI political violence survey, respondents were asked if they completely disagree that the following actions by people who share their political beliefs are justified to advance important political goals, and one of them was killing a political opponent. So 59% of those respondents aged 18 to 29 said absolutely not, completely disagree. That means what? 41% were unsure or just disagree, not completely disagree, as opposed to 84% of 65-plus-year-olds. So, of course, that's a generational gap in the U.S. and really everywhere in the world. And that fascinating Gallup poll that really surveyed the legitimization of political violence in the U.S. found that the younger you are, the more you suffer from high loneliness, the more you suffer from radicalization, the more you're likely to support political violence, as opposed to more adult, more family-oriented people. Well, do words lead to action? I believe, of course they do. There's no question about it. Look no further than those manifestos, so-called, that the shooters leave behind. They are willing to sacrifice their own lives in order to attain their objective. They're constantly being told that their lives are under threat by this so-called danger to national security in the form of the president. Of course, this is outrageous. It's incitement to violence, and it's become normalized on mainstream media. It doesn't make it normal. And I can speak for myself as a Jewish person. I can see that the link between the growing normalcy or legitimization of anti-Semitic narratives in the United States and the spike in anti-Semitic incidents. All those shootings that you hear about in Jewish centers, in synagogues in the past few years, they're not coincidental. They happen as a result of this ecosystem of hate and false narratives. According to an ADL report, 2025, 91% of American Jews say they feel less safe as a Jewish person in the United States due to violent attacks in the past year, including the burning of a Jewish governor's home, the firebombing of Jews in Boulder, Colorado, and then the murders at the Capitol Jewish Museum. 78% of American Jews say they feel less safe as a Jewish person in the United States because of October 7th, of course, the Hamas terrorist attacks. Another ADL report said there was an 893% increase in anti-Semitic incidents over the past decade in the United States, which is insane. To be fair, not only in the United States, Germany, France, the UK see a true spike in anti-Semitic incidents. And to be honest, I don't just see a spike in incidents, not just a whole bunch of trees, but a forest and all-out efforts to make these places unlivable for Jewish people. And if you want to have a closer look at that generational gap, look no further than college campuses. That's where I would say this ecosystem of radicalization is taking place. A report found that 42% of American Jewish college students report experiencing anti-Semitism during their time on campus. 1 in 4, that's 25% of American Jewish college students, say they have felt or have been excluded from a group or an event on campus because they are Jewish. Now, why would that happen? Well, they are studying in campuses whose presidents testified in Congress, in that infamous Congress hearing, that, well, calls for the genocide of Jews are context dependent. It depends on the context of whether or not you actually mean it, whether or not you just call for it. These are the so-called permission structures for violence. And so you can see how these echo chambers work. Yale Youth Poll found that young voters remain most likely to express anti-Semitic beliefs. They were asked if they believe in the following 3 statements. Jews in the United States are more loyal to Israel than to America. 2, it's appropriate to boycott Jewish American-owned businesses to protest the war in Gaza. And 3, Jews in the United States have too much power. They just have too much power. Well, a good sign is that most voters, 67%, agreed with 0 of the above 3 statements, but some agreed with 1, 17%, 2, 9%, or even all 3, 6% of polled college students agreed with all of the above statements. Now, we're used to see this phenomenon on the left. They look at someone like Mamdani, the new mayor of New York. He's politically expedient. Therefore, they sugarcoat these Islamist views that he's expressing out there. Or look at the way the left is normalizing Hassan Piker and his violent rhetoric, saying that America deserved 9/11, or making calls against homeowners or capitalists, Zionists. I don't want to repeat his words, but you get the gist. So we can't propagate all that, make excuses for all that, and then act innocent when something, God forbid, happens. After the Charlie Kirk shooting, we heard people from even the deep left, like Bernie Sanders, say that political violence is not the solution. Now, when the third assassination attempt happened during the White House Correspondents Dinner, Trump himself testified on how there was an ambience of unity in the room, and even his staunchest opponents approached him and hugged him and shook his hands. And so, yes, these moments are a testament that our society seems to be healthier than we thought. But these forces that create this echo chamber of radicalization, these permission structures for violence, the normalization of violence or calls for violence, all these things should not be part of the agenda. I remember when Trump referred to political violence, how we should all reject political violence of all sorts during the State of the Union address. Well, that was probably the one time when both Republicans and Democrats got up in a standing ovation and applauded. We shouldn't unite only after someone pulls the trigger. Let's use this moment of levity as a moment of unity to cool down the temperature. Look at how great America is. Look at how great Western societies are and where they brought us, what prosperity they brought us. And if we're having a social discussion, let's do it within the parameters of acceptable debate. Otherwise, we'll lose everything that we have and so much more. Thank you for watching Briefly by Underscore. And as always, please remember to like, share, and subscribe down below to be the first to watch the next episode.